What people think of art today is actually tools that we needed for survival. Our pottery, that was used for cooking, it was used for carrying water, it was used for ceremonial purposes. My people have been doing it for thousands of years. Teaching and sharing my art with others, that's how you keep your traditions alive, that's how you keep your culture alive. All that becomes knowledge that you can use to create a stronger individual self. It shows what our people went through and how we overcome things, and that teaches us how we can overcome things in our lives.
I know from working with clay as long as I have that the earth holds a memory of the cultures who were here. Being able to use all of the natural elements gives us an opportunity to be able to grow as a human being and to be able to see ourselves in a way that is connected to our environment. I just always feel like clay has so many life lessons.
My name is Raven Halfmoon, and I am an enrolled citizen of the Caddo Nation. I am from Oklahoma, and I am a contemporary indigenous artist. I always say I'm living in two worlds of sharing traditional knowledge, trying to bring that information forward and carry it on to the next generations, but at the same time making work that was a little bit more relevant to my own personal experiences. I think people think of Native culture or even some things as like this frozen moment in time, and it's a continuum. It's ever evolving, and art's changing, and traditions are ever changing. So it's holding on to those, and at the same time being relevant to today's day and age. And I think that's where my art kind of makes those cross points. And so it's important for me to always be carrying those who were with me in the past, family, and bringing them forward, and also sharing my experiences. And then coming here to the Bray, you know, I feel like my career and what I made really jumped off from being here, and that's my appreciation for this space, and it means the Bray has a special place in my heart for that reason.
The Archie Bray Foundation, or the Bray as we refer to it, plays a pretty pivotal role in bringing culture and diversity into this community. We have artists that are coming, honestly, from all over the world through this very specific lens of contemporary ceramics, but it also, you're kind of getting a sense of what's happening with people in other cultures around the world. The work is sort of projecting that in a way.
The best thing about the Bray is it's kind of a cohort exposure residency. So the people that come here, it's not only about them making their work, it's about them making connections.
Sorrel.
We are kind of a ceramic mecca, and my goal here is to make this like the place to come in the world if you want to know anything about ceramics. So we have kilns that'll fire to cone 10 with a computer. We have salt kilns, soda kilns, wood kilns. We don't have any indigenous techniques. So that is a hole in our knowledge that we're looking to fill. How do we expand the canon? How do we make available to as many people as possible ways in?
My name is Jared So. I come from Navajo Nation, and I specialize in Navajo pottery. I'm currently the 4th generation in my family to make pottery. I'm hooked with clay. Like, I can't not make clay. Like, even when I've tried to take breaks, like it'll pull me in. When I was in grad school, that last year, my father passed away, so I guess I'll start with, let me find the spot. I think of our time spent together with clay, how we talked and thought about the materials, eventually feeling our way through the natural world until vessels were brought into being. I realize now that the time I shared with my father was more than just sitting around a table working on pots. He was telling stories. Now, as the next generation of potter, I inherit the role of storyteller. Whether it be to my liking or not, my additions to this story are permanent, a permanence that is embedded in the same clay that my family has always used. Part of the reason I fell in with love with pottery because I was unaware of it at the time, but it was a time to spend time with my dad. It was a time to bond. Pottery was all guiding that. As a Navajo artist and a Navajo potter, it took a while to accept that whatever I make is contributing to the definition of what Navajo pottery is, which can be exciting but also very daunting. And trying to incorporate a different language that we're not split between being traditional or contemporary and how that contradicts one another. Because as contemporary people, anything we make is inherently contemporary. This tool of tradition and this tool of contemporary can be a powerful tool, but there's also consequences. We can play the stereotype and make a living. We can perform the stereotype and people will be happy, but it still contextualizes us in the past, which makes it really hard for people to accept our present.
I think a lot of people have this romanticized idea of what being Native is, but it's been a long time coming, especially in museums and institutions, of what we think is American history and things that have been hidden, voices that have been lost, or voices that haven't been heard. And I think right now there's a lot of artists, not only Indigenous, BIPOC artists as well, that are changing the trajectory on that. People are ready to hear a new narrative. People are ready to hear the truth and to hear kind of some of the things that we've been through. I think any little thing that's sharing that information is a spark and gets it going. It's like a fire.
I had just been sort of monitoring artists working in the field, and I kept seeing this one name pop up, Chinupa Hanska Luger. You know, he'd been winning different fellowships and awards, and his work was being shown in all these really fantastic venues. So I just called him out of the blue and asked if he would want to come work out in Montana.
My introduction to clay was kind of sideways. I have a recollection, like there's some sort of epigenetic memory to clay and clay processes. My access to clay has not been through institutions. So my point of access to the American craft movement of the 70s, where clay became a fine material to 7 white dudes, then it became very important all of a sudden, and the irony of it being an American craft canon and not having 20,000 years of indigenous people working in clay here. So Stephen and I were kind of talking about some of these things, and so we just started these kind of conversations around clay, and I was like, the vast majority of people working in clay on the planet Earth presently are pit firing. Out of necessity, and out of these customs that have been passed down forever. And he was wanting to broaden Archie Bray's scope to invite people outside of the same hat that all the names are dropped in.
For a place like the Archie Bray, that's supposed to be this center of ceramic knowledge and experience, it felt like that was an area that we really needed to provide more representation. And he was really curious about wanting to try to learn more about how that practice is being used in North America, but then also around the world.
You can invite a more diverse audience from across the globe to share their knowledge and invite people here who are expert at what they do. And so I was like, let's shift it. Let's call it First Fire. And let's build a facility that celebrates pit firing.
I'm just gonna keep grabbing yours because
The group that's here right now working with First Fire are all indigenous artists from different regions in North America. So we have Northeast, Southeast, Southwest, Midwest traditions. It's easy to build a roof, but how do you build a floor that is designed to adapt to the myriad of techniques that will potentially come there? I'm like, I don't want the artist to have to adapt to this space, how does the space adapt to their technique?
There's such an amazing history of ceramics that is happening in native cultures that we could learn from, and then also try to provide some exposure, as much as exposure to as possible. You know, we've worked with Lame Deer in the past, where Susan Wolf, who's one of the instructors there, has brought students out for many years. They're going to spend time working in the studio alongside the first fire artists, you know, so that they can see role models of these like really accomplished artists, and then, you know, hopefully have some impact in that way about, you know, what's possible in terms of a career in the arts.
I think anytime that you can join people together that have the same loves and same thoughts and, you know, same feelings about a material that they're working with, a powerful experience is going to happen. I'm looking for those conversations, you know, and I'm just looking for that fellowship, because I think it's just really important that we be able to support one another. It's really important to have an Indigenous voice. Our voice has not always been there in institutions. And so I think this is another example where a voice that is different than mainstream, you know, has an opportunity to be able to talk about who they are and where they come from. I mean, especially if we're talking about clay.
I want to find similarities with each other and with our art, but I also like to learn the differences, tricks of the trade. I would like that. And just establishing a relationship out here in the ceramic world.
I think our expectation, or mine, is to really be here and be in this incubator of sharing and figuring out what's the best way that we're gonna build this facility, literally. Like, what's the best way that involves a bunch of different processes so it's open to everyone. I think that's what we're trying to figure out now, is to get some of that information.
I'm just here to boss.
I want to liberate these definitions that unintentionally limit Native artists into a very specific category. And I think the Bray has put themselves in a strong position to do that, letting us be who we are in our present selves.
They've taught me so much. I know that we've all learned so much from them, and then, you know, I can just see them sharing with each other and learning from one another. And I feel like that's the beauty of a place like the Bray, is that it really is about, you bring people together who are just creative and excited, and we're certainly seeing that.
One of the phrases that I use a lot in my work is "we survive you." And this notion of the collective surviving the individual, and that our collective intelligence is greater than any individual genius.
These kinds of opportunities, they're priceless, really. We're incredible people that we can make, you know, these expressions of who we are, you know, with such integrity and with such agency. I want people to understand who we are.